Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Oh, there you are. I was hoping I'd cross paths with you today. I'd like to invite you to visit the Storywell. It's a place where storytellers of all stripes gather. From improv performers to authors, screenwriters to playwrights, we all tell stories. But we're not here to talk about craft. We're here to make something out of nothing. Each episode of the podcast, your host, that's me, sits down with a creative person, and based on a series of random prompts, we get elements that we make into a story. Will it be a noir novel about King Kong? Or a Broadway musical about JFK? Even we don't know. That's the fun part. But what do you get out of this, besides a good time with fun people? Simple. The idea is then yours. That's right. Whatever we come up with, we give it away for anyone to use however they'd like, no strings attached. It's like each episode comes with a free prize inside. The Storywell with Kyle Olson. We'll save you a seat at the table.
Ever wonder what bridges the gap between your favorite film genres, subgenres, and movements? CinemaScope is here to explore these connections, taking you on a thrilling odyssey through the ever-evolving art of cinema. I'm your host, Andy Nelson, and in each episode, we embark on a deep dive into the forces that sculpt the world of film. From the styles you know and love, like heist films or the French New Wave, to the ones you may not be as familiar with, like Turkish Yeşilçam or Brazilian Nordwesterns, my expert guests and I unravel the complex tapestry of storytelling, style, and innovation that defines the world of film as we unpack the myriad catalysts of change that shape these diverse styles. Whether you're a student of film, a creative professional, or simply a devoted movie enthusiast, CinemaScope is your gateway to a richer, more immersive film experience. Don't just watch movies, understand them, appreciate them, and revel in their artistry with CinemaScope. Subscribe today.
I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
The hunt for Red October is over. It's up to you, Charlie, but you might consider cutting the kid a little slack.
The most brilliant commander in the Soviet Navy.
Ramius trained most of their officer corps. He's nearly a legend in the submarine community.
The most deadly submarine ever built.
This thing could park a couple of hundred warheads off Washington. Nobody'd know a thing about it until it was all over.
And once more, we play our dangerous game with our old adversaries, the American Navy.
His plan is a mystery.
A man with your responsibilities reading about the end of the world.
Apparently he has suffered a kind of nervous breakdown in which he announced his intention to fire his missiles on the United States.
He wants us to help you hunt him down, kill him.
Open the outer doors, firing point procedures. We sail into history.
I'm going to blow him right to Mars.
Ramius might be trying to defect.
You're just an analyst. What can you possibly know what goes on in his mind?
I'll give you 3 days to prove your theory correct.
I am not field personnel. I am only an analyst.
You're perfect.
I'm expendable.
He's defecting. You willing to bet your life on that?
From the best-selling novel by Tom Clancy. From the director of Die Hard.
Give this man a chance.
My orders are specific. Battle stations.
Sean Connery, Alec Baldwin, James Earl Jones, Scott Glenn, Sam Neill. The Hunt for Red October.
This entire episode, Andy, is going to be about me doing bad accents.
Which is funny because, nobody is really doing an accent in the movie. They just are like, you know what? I'm Russian, but, Scottish accent's fine.
Yep.
I mean, I guess Sam Neill's not walking in with an Australian accent. He's doing something.
Sam Neill, of everybody, is really pulling his weight. He's doing the work. But Fred Thompson is just Tennessee. It's fine.
He's just Fred Thompson.
He's just Fred Thompson.
Senator Thompson.
Man, he's great.
How long did he serve in office? That's always strikes me as one of those funny things that he actually was a real U.S. senator.
I know. In office. I'm going to do real-time research. 1994 to 2003.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. Look at him, Freddie.
Yeah.
So we're doing the hunt for Red October. Now this was, I come to you a little bit in bed. Let me set this up. When we prepared our series, we did it as sort of a surprise to each other, right? We didn't tell each other what we were doing. We knew that we had holes to fill. And we needed big series. One of them was, here's a big chunk of however many movies. You came to this series with all brand new movies that we'd never seen. And I came to this series with Jack Ryan, which if there's ever anything that further cements my role as Popcorn Pete, I don't know what it is.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, I think that this totally fits into all sorts of types of series that we've covered in the past, including an entire season of just giant franchises that, we thought were worthy of conversation. And this is one of those, and it absolutely fits. The only fault I'd say in your list is that you didn't build it big enough to fit all 5 of the movies.
Right, because how many do we have?
We have 4 of them.
We're not doing the last one.
We're not doing the Shadow Recruit.
Yes, and I think what I was thinking was that we did the Shadow Recruit on the film board, and we didn't love it. And so why would I want to subject us to that again?
Although I've been debating with myself. I'm like, should I just watch that again once I finish these 4 just to finish the whole thing out?
Oh, I'm absolutely doing that. That would be dun. So of course I'm going to watch it.
Yeah,
I know how many people listening just finished it.
Right,
just finished everybody did. Yeah.
At the same time, we're giving ourselves space to use that as an opportunity to finish, fill in a series down the road, which we also do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there.
Okay. All right.
Look at that.
So Hunt for Red October. This was obviously the first Jack Ryan thing that I'd ever seen.
Okay. Now, and I'm assuming that you saw this in the theater.
Oh, yeah.
Had you been reading the books, or like me, were the books at this point probably a little more than you were up for reading?
At this point, all Tom Clancy books were like my older uncle's books. They were the books that he picked up at an airport and left on his side table for years. They were hyper technical. I opened them in the print. The paper was too thin and the print was too small, right? This movie came out, I was 18? And so I was not equipped for reading, for the patience to read the books and actually understand what was going on at that point.
Yeah. I mean, the book came out in 1984.
Right.
And I was definitely too young to be, even by the time the movie came out, I was not into it. I never really could get into what Tom Clancy was doing. I appreciate his writing. I actually have just started reading The Sum of All Fears just to get a sense of how he puts his books together.
So you haven't read any of the other books?
No, I've never read any of them.
Okay. So I do have that on you. Since then, as an adult, when I got into these kinds of books, I did clean up the slate. I haven't read all of Tom Clancy's books, but I've read all the books that are behind this series.
Well, because Tom Clancy died in, what year did he die? 2013? Is that when he died? I have to look real quick. Tom Clancy died in 2013. Yeah, I was right. And I know since then, there have been a number of people approved by the Clancy estate to kind of continue the series. Tom Clancy wrote, so far there are 36 novels written by Tom Clancy, Grant Blackwood, Mark Greaney, Mike Maiden, Mark Cameron, and a whole bunch of other people. He wrote most of them up to 2010, after which point his next novels were co-written. And then after his death in 2013, that's when a whole bunch of other people came in. And if I'm correct, and this is something I am not very familiar with, but somebody ended up doing a whole series that was a spin-off series of Jack Ryan Jr., right?
Oh, wow. I don't know anything about that.
Oh, okay.
I did not pursue it. I didn't look at it. I don't know what that is.
Well, that was to the point where I was like, is that
Jack Ryan for kids?
That's it's playground politics. Gets pretty messy. No, but that's not all of the properties. And I guess when I say all the properties, I know the films have all been based on the actual Jack Ryan, even if Shadow Recruit wasn't actually based on a book. But the TV series was not Jack Ryan Jr. It still is Jack Ryan, right?
Yes. Yes, it is. And we will talk about that. Actually, we should probably talk about that a little bit just as we get started talking about Jack Ryan, the man character. before we dig into this film specifically.
The man character.
The man character.
I guess it's called the Ryan verse.
Yeah,
the series
it
of
is.
novels.
That's right. I'm glad you said that because I didn't have to say it. It's so stupid.
I know. Well, everything's a verse now. Like somebody started now. Yeah, can't get rid of it.
So first, give me your sense of the Jax Ryan, of your thoughts of the Jax Ryan, the people who've played Jack Ryan.
Krasinski's obviously played it the most since he's on TV. I've never watched the show, so I can't speak to that at all. So just
I'll speak to it, Andy.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. So just speaking to the films, I know that like the character Jack Ryan starts as like an analyst at the CIA, and over the course of the books ends up eventually becoming president. It's kind of like the path, I suppose, every CIA analyst wants secretly is trying to figure out how they can make work in their own lives. But I know that there's a kind of a continued rise in his ranks, eventually like national security advisor and all that. I can't remember in the films if he's always just an advisor. Like what I like about Alec Baldwin is he really feels out of his element often. Like he feels like an analyst who is thrust into this world and has to figure out how to do it. I mean, it gets to a point at the end, I suppose, where he's going after the cook, where it may feel a little more action guy sort of role. Harrison Ford always felt a little more, maybe it's because Harrison Ford is somebody I had already seen in a bunch of action movies, and so he didn't necessarily feel as much the analyst to me. He just felt like he was brought in because he already was an action star and would be able to just bring that to the table. Mm-hmm. Ben Affleck, that movie and him as Jack Ryan has always been kind of the least for me. Although I say that not really remembering it very well. So I'm actually looking forward to revisiting that. And then Chris Pine in that version, I should go. Yeah, I do need to go back and watch that one again just to refresh my memory as to what I thought about Chris Pine. But I felt like I don't know. It seems like after Alec Baldwin, they really were looking for people who kind of fit the action star mold a little better.
Yes.
And so to that end, I've always kind of liked Alec Baldwin as my Jack Ryan.
I think that is where I land too, because the Jack Ryan in this movie and book celebrate the accidental hero tropes better than any of the others, right? In this movie, they even go into that bit of backstory where he was badly injured before he even had a chance to have a star turn in the military, right? And that's really important. He is an analyst first, right? He's a desk-bound analyst first, and he accidentally finds himself in this just bit of chaos. He becomes president in executive orders, I think was the book, and that's after a terrorist attack kills literally everybody, like everybody else. There's nobody else left alive, and so Jack Ryan's like, I guess I'll be president. That's kind of how that happens. And
so it could have been called the accidental president.
It could have been called the accidental president. Like, I think that's when Jack Ryan as a character is working the best for me. I think Harrison Ford kind of does it, but he always looks more like he belongs in the role of like the action hero president. And so, I struggled a little bit with that transfer. I feel like I blocked out Ben Affleck and Chris Pine, although the problem I had with the Chris Pine version of it was not Chris Pine. It was other things in the rest of the movie. So I'm interested in watching that one again. And the show is an excellent show, and Krasinski is a legit action hero, and I never once believe that he is a desk-bound office jockey. Like, he's just a giant of a man now, and he's bursting out of his shirts, and when he holds a gun, I believe he is more militaristic than he is an analyst. And I think they chose that direction to take. They wanted to make Jack Ryan an action property. I think some of the best Jack Ryan is right here, this kid who's accidentally found himself on a plane and can't sleep because of turbulence, and like he's just generally kind of afraid, but he's doing his duty. That's Jack Ryan for me.
Yeah, I think that's what I really enjoy about him. And it will be interesting to kind of revisit all of these films to get a sense of that and get a feel for what the studios and the filmmakers really wanted out of this Ryan verse that they had created,
Yeah. And we'll talk more next week, I think, about the controversies that led to Alec Baldwin not reprising the role as Jack Ryan. We'll hold that for next week, but there is a story. So, bookmark it.
Good. Yeah. And this is, I guess, I don't know, this might be the place to have this conversation. 4 of the 5 films that were, or 4 of the films that were made were based on books. Yet the 4 films that were based on books are the first, second, 4th, and 5th. Do you have any idea as to why they ended up skipping the 3rd book, which is The Cardinal of the Kremlin?
I don't.
Was it just like...
I don't know why they didn't make that one.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because they did Hunt for October, Patriot Games, skipped The Cardinal of the Kremlin, went to Clear and Present Danger and The Sum of All Fears. No idea. And then the 5th movie isn't even based on...
No, it's kind of an amalgamation of character.
Yeah, it's just...
Yeah.
All right. So that's, I think, a good setup for all of this going on with Jack Ryan as the character and everything as far as the book goes. This was Tom Clancy's first book. He wrote it or it was released in 1984. And to the point where, because of Tom Clancy's background, he had a military background. And this was what I always heard is because he had that military background, that's why the books are so technical and to some extent so accurate. And to the point where when The Hunt for Red October came out, one of the people in the military who read it said, "Who the hell cleared this?" Which I think is really funny that it felt so realistic to have such a story like this. But also, and this is what I think is interesting, when Hollywood... It was Mace Neufeld optioned the script, could not find anybody interested in making the movie because everybody felt it was too complicated. And I think that's interesting that from 1984, when Neufeld optioned the book, all the way until 1990, when they finally were able to make the movie, just couldn't get it made.
That's fascinating. And, real-time research, I'm just looking up why they didn't do Cardinal of the Kremlin, and it's exactly this reason. They did try to do it with Harrison Ford, and they just felt like it was not action-driven enough compared to the other Clancy novels, and it was much more complicated than the ones that they did make. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So they said this one isn't action enough.
Yeah.
Too complicated. Even by the standards of the books that we've already adapted,
right?
We're going to skip it.
Interesting.
Wow. Yeah, really interesting. I'll have to read that one. I'm curious to check it out and see.
I know now, and then we'll make the movie. We'll just sweet it.
Yeah, sure. There you go.
Yeah. So that's the story of making the movie.
Yeah. And then, off and away, they get it going. And I think that's what it was exciting about it is taking this story, which on the surface, I don't know. When you talk about the plot, it doesn't sound all that complicated, but, and I suppose I wonder, thinking about this in the mid-'80s, if part of it was the status of kind of where we were in the Cold War at the time, like having Soviets that were some of the good guys in the story. Granted, they wanted to defect and give their, multi-million-dollar technology to the U.S. So, okay, yeah, I guess I can see that being an okay thing. But still, you're in a period where the Soviets weren't necessarily good characters in your story.
I think, what I think the really encapsulates the complexities of this movie. It's not in the plot. It's in the understanding of subtext. And I think no scenes in the movie better encapsulate that than any sequence between Joss Ackland and Richard Jordan, right? This is Andrei Lysenko and Jeffrey Pelt. When they are speaking so obviously in subtext, saying the things that they, and not saying the things they can't say out loud, but knowing full well that they both know more than they think each other thinks they know. See, I can't even talk about it. It's so complicated. I think that's the whole thing, because this entire movie is about understanding motives, not necessarily about bang, bang, shoot 'em up. In fact, on this view, I felt like the movie was slower than I remembered, right? Its pacing was slower and more sort of deliberative than I remembered it being. My memory of it as an action movie is I don't react well with bullets, right? Getting that perfect McTiernan, I'm on my belly crawling through a small space shot. And so those, like this movie is a thoughtful political story, very much more than it's an action story. And I think that makes it, I think, different. I can sort of see why they want to move toward more action behemoths over the subsequent years.
Yeah, but it also speaks to the fact that it does feel like, and I don't get it, but Hollywood saw the success of this, which, I mean, it was a box office success, but still said, we still want more action.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
That's the thing that I never quite understand with Hollywood, and some critics, I mean, called out, like, Newsweek's David Anson said that, it was this smoother, impressively mounted machine is curiously ungripping, like an overfilled kettle. It takes far too long to come to a boil. So, I mean, there were people at the time who were, maybe the studios were hearing those sorts of comments as opposed to more of the positive comments and saying, yeah, see, we do need more action.
Yeah, there is a sequence in this film where we're cutting back and forth between the Dallas and the Red October. And on the Dallas, it is a gripping story of dudes listening for underwater sounds on their headphones. And everything's quiet and low angle and very, very tense. And then we cut back to Russian dudes with their tea talking about how badly they want to be able to cross state lines without papers and see Montana. And it is, I think that's a great example of one of those sequences that's like, do we know what kind of movie we're making? Is it slow, thoughtful, and derivative, or is it slow, thoughtful, and deliberative, or is it an action film? And to me, that sort of intercutting reads very, very well. Like, I think that's great, but I can see this, potential view on the film that it's just too slow. It's too much of people talking about, other stuff. The same thing I think can be said of, remember the movie Firefox with Clint Eastwood?
Oh yeah.
It had a similar vibe, right? We're going to take this technology and we're going to take it someplace, steal it, and give it to people who shouldn't have it. And that movie was billed as an action movie. It is not an action movie, right? It is a thoughtful, deliberative meditation on trust between superpowers. And that's what this movie is.
To that end, I think it allows this to be smarter.
Yes.
And it's allowing the audience to have more time to really understand some of the complexities of what's going on in this giant chess game played between the Russians and the Americans, or the Soviets and the Americans, I should say. That, I think, is interesting to watch. And for me, that's why this is a fantastic action film, because it gives us those moments to really get a sense as to the stakes and everything, and understand all of the complexities and the intricacies of all these different players that are moving around in the North Atlantic over the course of this. And to that end, it's like, I'm finding it as gripping as some action sequences when Alec Baldwin is trying to get onto the Dallas, off of a helicopter. Like, that to me is as gripping as some of these other things, because we're invested in everything that's going on here. Like, it's important to us that this is something that is a success. And so I think that's why these sorts of things make it. And when I hear these critics' comments about it, it's so slow and boring, it's like, then you just weren't invested in the story.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. And I think that, seeing it and missing those elements means you're missing the part of the story that is about, individual moral choices versus patriotic loyalty. And you're missing the story about technology in modern warfare and how it can be a quiet foe, right? Not to lean too hard into the Caterpillar drive's actual function, but you're missing the story of what it means to be a leader and what leadership does and to make decisions under incredible pressure. And I think all of those things are action-oriented, even if they don't always play well on film. But I think this movie captures it well, is the point.
Yeah. Well, and, I think there's a trick in this film that is about loyalty and the game that they have to play, because Ryan is smart enough to figure out what Ramius is doing, right? He's able to get a sense that, he actually is trying to defect. It's a year since his wife passed away, and this is a person who's, wanting to actually defect. And then for all of these higher ranking U.S. officials, way above, this CIA analyst, right? Like the trying to convince the National Security Advisor and everybody else that he's trying to defect. That is a massive amount of trust that he's asking these people to put on him and his ideas. And to the point where, these helicopters are going to drop him into the ocean so that he can go actually get on the ship and convince the captain. Like the whole thing of trying to convince Marcus that, this is what is happening, or not Marcus, Mancuso, that this is what's happening. There's a lot of that going on in this. And you can see why Jack Ryan would become president, because he's really good at convincing all these higher ranking people of what's actually going on. And that's a difficult feat when you're at the peak of the Cold War.
This is a perfect time, I think, for a quiz that I would like to offer to you. Because
good. I love quizzes.
I know. I think you're going to really like this one. I'm going to give you 5 submarine maneuvering terms. You're going to tell me which one of them is not real.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Oodles and baffles, Yankee Doodles, angles and dangles, Crazy Ivan. Which one is not real?
Well, when you say not real, are you talking in terms of the movie? Because the Crazy Ivan they do in the movie, I don't know if it's a real thing in the real world.
I'm asking you, what is not real in the real world?
So there's oodles and baffles.
Yankee Doodles, angles and dangles, Crazy Ivan. One of those is not real.
I'm going to say oodles and baffles.
Damn it. How did you know? They're all absurd.
I know they
How did you know that's the one that's not real? It could have been angles and dangles. Come on.
I don't know. I just guessed. Yeah.
I did make that one up. The baffles clearing maneuvers undertaken by Soviet Yankee-class submarines were dubbed Yankee Doodles.
Okay.
The angles and dangles is a 5-hour process of rapid direction and speed changes to ensure that all items aboard were properly secured for hard maneuvering and would not fall off shelves or shift suddenly.
Oh my God.
Producing noise that the enemy could detect. That's I think the important part.
Interesting.
And then the Crazy Ivan, a hard turn to clear the baffles and position the submarine to attack any followers. It's legit. Crazy Ivan.
Wow.
It's a thing.
That's awesome. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oodles and baffles, man. It needs to, if we say it enough and it's in the transcript, do you think AI will start to believe it's real?
Probably. It won't take that long to trick AI.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, okay. So casting for this, let's talk about that a little bit. So, in the process of this, as they were getting everything together, they were initially wanting Kevin Costner to play Jack Ryan. And I think it's interesting because he does end up, not Jack Ryan, but he ends up in the franchise by the time Shadow Recruit rolls around. He turned it down because he wanted to star in and direct Dances with Wolves, which came out the same year. But what do you think of Costner? Could you see him in the role?
I can see him in the negotiation saying, at what point will there be giant fields of high grass that I can run through? If there's no giant field of high grass, that's a deal breaker.
I come to you asking this question knowing what you think about Kevin Costner, so I really shouldn't have expected anything more than that. But I will say, what I like about Costner is I also feel that he's more of the analyst type of character rather than the action star. Now, granted, he would end up doing things like Waterworld and I suppose proving some prowess in that action realm. But I thought that he would have been an interesting option to fit.
Oh, for sure. What's interesting about Kevin Costner is I think he's aged into the role he did play in the later movie. Like he's aged into the surly kind of advisor role, and I think he's much better older than I think he would have been in this movie. Personally, I'm glad they ended up where they did.
Yeah. Harrison Ford was actually the second option, but he turned it down, which I think is interesting because then, of course, he would say, okay, sure, by the time the second one rolled around. As for Ramius, the first person that they actually cast and started shooting with was Klaus Maria Brandauer, which I think is interesting. I've always liked his face. He's one of those fantastic faces from the 70s and 80s, and I guess into the 90s. The Russia House, I know we talked about him in that. And I think Out of Africa was probably his biggest role, at least maybe biggest noticed, because he got an Oscar nomination for that. Never Say Never Again. I know that's on your list of things.
It's on a list.
So, you like that one. I still haven't seen that one.
Oh, Andy.
I know. But he ended up stepping out. And of course, then Sean Connery.
Do you know why? Do you know why he stepped out? Do we have any news on that?
He had a prior commitment filming. And so he quit 2 weeks into filming, had a prior commitment. So I don't know if that says that they were just running behind by that point or what. I'm not exactly sure, but it just says due to a prior commitment.
That sucks. Like a wedding. I'm sorry, I can't be in your movie.
Yeah, I got a wedding to go to.
Yeah, not good.
But then they faxed the script to Connery, who actually declined it. And then when he realized it actually, because Connery said it's implausible portraying the Soviet Union as an ambitious naval power. But then he found out that it actually was taking place in the 80s, or the earlier 80s as opposed to later 80s, and he felt more comfortable with that. And that's when he signed on.
This movie is fascinating for a number of reasons, but invariably, as I've been talking about the fact that we're doing this movie on the show to a number of people in our community, the first thing that they say is, that movie did the coolest thing to change languages. Right? This movie has a reputation for a camera linguistic gimmick that actually changes languages in a way that I think it's maybe outsized. I mean, movies do interesting things to change languages all the time, but this one, because they didn't, I don't know. I can imagine Sean Connery saying, I'm not going to be speaking Russian the entire movie. What can we do to fix that? To do the zoom in on the political officer's mouth and to change languages on the word Armageddon and then have it pull out. And now he's speaking English and everybody speaking English was innovative at the time. And I think that was fascinating. And it absolves us of having to listen to Sean Connery's Russian Scotch accent and get over the fact that his accent doesn't fit the character. The problem is some of the actors also have their own Russian accents. And I think that the mix of them is at times discontinuous. It's at times funny. He stands out of all. Yet he's a perfect Ramius, right? He's a perfect Ramius.
Oh, he's great. His hair, like that, it kind of was like an iconic haircut for him, like that kind of that spiked crew cut and everything. It's an interesting look that I think worked well for the film.
His beard is perfect.
Yeah, right. He's gruff and looks the role. I was never bothered by the accents throughout the film, and it wasn't something that I ever really thought too much about. And I suppose it's because I just grew up in the era where anytime it was different countries, people just had other accents, and that's kind of the length that we went. And here we've got Tim Curry speaking with his British accent. Sam Neill is kind of doing something, but it's not quite his Aussie accent, at least. I guess he's more of a Brit with a little bit of a Russian twang to it. Stellan Skarsgård, I don't really think he's doing a whole lot. So yeah, it's just kind of
he doesn't have to, Skarsgård. He doesn't have to because he sounds
he's close enough. The Swedish accent, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's one of those things, and it never really bugged me too much.
Well, and this is a movie where you can get away with sounding generically foreign as long as you don't sound American.
Yeah, exactly. That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah.
And I think that's generally the way that films got away with it for a very long time.
Yes. So Connery, Baldwin, we like. On the American side, we've got Scott Glenn.
Yes.
Who I wonder, did they do something to actually wire his jaw shut? Do you notice he doesn't open his mouth? It's fascinating. Fascinating.
I think that it's funny because he feels so much the same character going between this and then his next role in Silence of the Lambs when he's Jack Crawford in that. It's like, it almost seems like after this whole thing with the Red October, he's just like, I'm just going to go work for the Bureau.
I need a desk job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
It
Just seems like the same role. But, he's always great. And, as a sub commander, I think he works well. And again, it's that game of having to be convinced by Ryan. And I think the back and forth negotiations between Ryan and Mancuso as they're trying to figure out, should we try to raise communication with them and have a conversation? I just find that really fascinating to watch as they play that game.
Yeah, I do too. You're talking about this part of the movie once Ryan gets to the Dallas, and it feels like the movie starts there, but there's a lot of movie leading up to that and a lot of sort of ancillary characters that build the sort of lore of the Red October. And one of my favorites, I know, we'll speak only briefly of it and then move right on. But I did have a nostalgic bit of joy seeing Alec Baldwin and Jeffrey Jones on screen together. And I think Skip Tyler, the character, is an interesting one. The fact that he teaches and helps build submarines is an interesting character. He was an interesting sort of Book of the Vampire character for us to go learn about the Caterpillar drive and to see what this mythical magneto hydroelectric drive could do. And I recognize we'll never see him in another movie.
Yeah. It was their Beetlejuice reunion.
It was their Beetlejuice reunion. Yeah.
Right here. Yeah.
Did you see Beetlejuice? I forgot.
I haven't seen it yet. Still haven't seen it.
They play heavily with the fact that Jeffrey Jones isn't in that movie. He's in that movie, but he's not in the movie.
Yeah. Well, I'll see it soon enough.
Yeah.
I will say, the role that I really enjoy watching is, especially in relation to Mancuso, is Courtney B. Vance as Jonesy, the sonar operator of the Dallas, because that is just a perfect example of a role with a character whose design is to be just awesome at their job. Just like kick-ass awesome. And he's the one who is able to actually figure out what's really going on and actually hears the Caterpillar drive and is able to actually understand what's happening. And I think that's what's exciting, is to see that whole aspect of the story as Vance, really gets excited and figures out and is able to track it. And so that's one of my favorite characters in the film.
Where were you in your Courtney B. Vance awareness at this time? Did you know he was Courtney B. Vance at the time? He'd only done some TV, right? And I think he was in Hamburger Hill.
Yeah.
Did you have any sense that this was a guy who was going to be something?
I don't know if I was thinking that way when I first watched this. I just enjoyed it and enjoyed the role, enjoyed the character. So,
it really wasn't until 1995's The Last Supper that you realized this guy is a real bona fide star, right?
That's right. Oh my goodness. Yes, of course. Yeah. Of course, that's where it all comes together.
Yeah, that's where it all comes together.
Yeah. But lots of great faces throughout this film. It's just a stacked cast across the board.
Haven't even mentioned James Earl Jones, really.
Right. James Earl Jones, is just always great to see and fun to see him. And
Jim Greer is another character from the Ryan verse that is substantial. And in fact, we don't get a lot of Jim Greer in this movie.
He's back in the others, right?
He's back in the others, but in the show, the TV show, he's a principal force in Jack Ryan's life. It's practically a buddy movie, a buddy show.
Oh, interesting.
Jim Greer he's the other big character name.
He's deputy director of the CIA. This is one of those things where it's like, I know there are all these echelons of rank and everything through all of these different things, and they do a good job of making me understand these guys are more important than these guys, et cetera, et cetera. But I still never completely understand a lot of the complexities within all of the different groups and everything, like as far as their roles and everything. But I mean, I do enjoy just watching all of these people on screen together. It's a great cast. And Richard Jordan, I think, is actually another of my favorites because, I don't know, there's something about his presence in this movie that is just so perfect as the National Security Advisor, and just one of those faces that I love to see. And when he pops up in a film like this, like he just fits so perfectly in that role.
There are a few, like the scene where he asked Jack to stay behind after the briefing, right? That is one of those scenes that felt intentionally overwritten because they had Richard Jordan to do it, right? They just wanted him to deliver us unto some exposition because they had it coming out of his face and his mouth. I'm a politician, so when I'm not stealing babies, or when I'm not kissing babies, I'm stealing their candy. Like those lines, yeah, the lollipops. He would, that character would not have said those things. I can't imagine him saying those things. But Jeffrey Pelt in this movie, I think they had say those things to great effect. So, overwritten, but kind of dreamy.
Oh, it's so much fun. He sadly passes away just 3 years after this, which is shocking. Only 56 years old, but yeah, it's just I think it's funny because I think of him in things like this, where he is just like perfect as this representative of the government, but then The Secret of My Success, where he's like the perfect like scummy businessman, So it's like, he's just one of those great faces from that period. So
I remember thinking very highly of his role in Gettysburg, his last movie.
Oh yeah,
in 1993. It's sad.
Yeah, it really is. This is John McTiernan following the success of Die Hard, which we've talked about the whole Die Hard series on our show, and of course last season we added Predator to our list. So we've covered a number of his films. I mean, Thomas Crown Affair, we talked about that one too. We made fun of Rollerball when we talked about the original Rollerball.
We did.
I don't know what happened with that one. Interesting career, and I think this fits into a period of just, I don't know, for me, it's kind of like the best that McTiernan had. And you're always looking for a run of like 3 or more great films that a filmmaker, like a director makes, because it's awfully hard to do that. But it's easy to say with McTiernan, with Predator, Die Hard, The Hunt for Red October as 3 films in a row. I mean, what a strong success that he had in that period.
Yeah, right. Well, and don't forget, like The Last Action Hero right after that. That was another very big movie, I think, for him.
No, Medicine Man was before that, though.
Yeah, I know, but was that as big a movie?
It was, I mean, I'm not saying it was a big movie. Well, it may have been a big movie. I'm just saying, I'm talking about like quality, successful films. Like, you wouldn't say Medicine Man or Last Action Hero were necessarily looked at. I'm not saying that they're bad. I think that's what you're saying. Decent enough, but I'm saying, like, when you look at a filmmaker who has like 3 great films, like top-notch films, that's, I think, hard to find with filmmakers. And I think for me, that is the run that McTiernan had.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. That's fair. You wouldn't say Die Hard with a Vengeance, Thomas Crown Affair, and The 13th Warrior were a second trilogy of awesome. Movies that are remembered fondly. I mean, they're all above 6 on the IMDb scale, but I think in terms of your thesis, they are not remembered as well as those first 3.
Maybe not. I would actually 13th Warrior would be an interesting one to discuss at some point in the scope of adaptations that were just massive struggles.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that was the biggest bomb of the year when it came out. It was just a complete disaster. But I remember thinking it had ideas in it that could have worked,
Did you ever see Basic 2003?
No, I never have. I'm missing a few of McTiernan's films. So I'll, if I want to finish his filmography, I'll have 1, 2, 4 films to watch.
I think I've got Nomads. I haven't seen Medicine Man, so Nomads, Medicine Man, Basic.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
Well, we could.
No, we're not going to do that series.
No? Okay.
No, we're not going to do that series. Put a fork in it right now.
All right, fine. Nomads. Leslie Ann Down, Pierce Brosnan. Interesting. Early Pierce Brosnan. If you've never been frightened by anything, you'll be frightened by this.
Spooky stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a horror. Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe I'll watch it.
But yeah, I think when you look at McTiernan and what he was doing in this period, this, I think, fits well. You know, Die Hard is a fantastic action film that also allows for strong character development and interesting character growth that we don't necessarily find in later Die Hard films. Mm-hmm. I think The Hunt for Red October is another example of a strong director coming in and allowing for the beats that would give us the character development of watching Ryan try to navigate all of this stuff as he was figuring out how to talk to a Russian submarine captain.
Right. And to be right on stage, like to be right in front of important people. Like that's one of the things that's great about Jack Ryan is that he's right every time. Right? He makes the right choices every time because of his intellect, because he studied, right? And I think that's an aspirational feature of our action heroes that I want to celebrate out loud. Like he's a good character because he's smart and a student of the world, and that makes him interesting even when he becomes an action hero. But the fact that we get a marker of his change in turbulence and air travel is a lovely little nod. Like it's the fact that he can't sleep on the way, and on the way home he can sleep now soundly as a success. And that's really cool. I think it's a great arc for the character. And you know, I think I knew seeing the movie that there would probably be more of these movies, but I think I could have been okay if this was a standalone movie. It kind of is a standalone movie because the character or the actor changes, but so it's got a nice little bow on the end.
Yeah, it does. And it'll be interesting to trace elements that thread through the franchise, right? As far as like Ryan and his family, because his wife's different here. We have Gates McFadden very briefly playing him at the beginning. I don't know, honestly. I guess it'll be interesting to see if the daughter, I'm assuming they recast the daughter by the time we get to the next ones, but I just can't remember. And his mom ends up pregnant or his wife ends up pregnant in Patriot Games, and that was kind of the whole twist or surprise ending. Like, you know. Yeah, I don't remember how they handle kids. Well, it will be fun to kind of continue along and see. Any other things that really stand out? Cinematography, the music, Basil Polidoros' score, I just absolutely adore. Fantastic score. Extraordinary, yeah. This was one of those movies that had extensive support from the Navy, and so it looked really, really good, right? We're on ships. We're on deck on aircraft carriers. They played a fascinating little trick in showing the airplane crash into the side of the deck on a television and then having everybody run up to the surface of the deck to see the tragedy and never cut to the tragedy on the deck. I thought that was a nice trick, and I am tricked by it every time that they never show us that giant effect, and yet it's on TV. Don't know where it came from. Well, and what do you think of that scene? I'm glad you brought that up because it is an interesting element to throw in there. This is shortly after Jack has landed on the aircraft carrier and is trying to convince the admiral, captain, I'm not sure who he is, but to help him get up to the Dallas so that he can kind of have this conversation up there. And then this accident happens where a plane has been damaged and it comes in and it crashes.
Yeah. The setup was that, Jack, why don't you take a nap and get some fresh clothes? And it's liable to get a little hairy. That's what he says. When you come here, I'll be in the CNC or whatever, but whenever you find me, it's liable to get a little hairy. And at that time, we're not thinking it's going to get hairy because planes are flying into the side of our ship. The fact that was somehow an inciting incident to get Ryan onto that helicopter, I don't always see how those things go together. If anything, why is he allowed to do anything, Jack Ryan, at that point?
And I guess that's the thing that I was like a little confused with. And I mean, I do like, there is that scene where the captain of the aircraft carrier is talking to, I don't know, his number one, and the number one is like, this guy's an idiot. And that's where we get that expository bit about Jack Ryan's backstory, as to the fact that, you know, he had been in the military and in an accident, blah, blah, blah.
Been in that helicopter crash, right? Specifically.
Right. And then number one ends up kind of becoming his biggest supporter and is the one who's like helping him get onto the helicopter and everything by the time he's doing that and stuff. And yeah, I just wonder if there was some element that we're supposed to take from all of that, as far as like, why is it that after this plane has this accident and everything, that is it like, well, that was the thing that we were here for and now we're done. So yeah, I guess now that mission is done, now we can send you off. I guess it was something, and maybe I just need to pay attention more when I rewatch it just to see what was going on there.
What's interesting about it is the accident happens and you've got Charlie and Fred Thompson staring at the accident scene. And we cut to Alec Baldwin, who then looks at the helicopter. And that cut implies Baldwin's going to steal it.
Right. They're distracted.
Right. Everybody's busy. I'll bet I can get that helicopter. And I think that's really funny. That whole sequence, now that we're talking about it, doesn't necessarily play, but it gets him on a helicopter, and that's important.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if they just were, even just like an audience distraction. So we're also like, oh, what? Squirrel? Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Squirrel. Oh, look, he's on the helicopter.
Get him on a helicopter. Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, regardless of that, the confusion that I have with that scene, I always have a great time watching this.
Yeah,
it's just fantastic. Especially, by the time we get to the whole cat and mouse game underwater at the end, when his nemesis, when Ramius's nemesis,
Tupolev
on the Konovalov is chasing them, and you've got the 3 subs there, you've got the little mini sub, like all of that stuff, and this rogue torpedo that's just zipping around. Like, it is so much fun. I love that shot of the sub bursting out of the water and all of the Russians like, he's got them on the run. They're cheering their captain on. It's just, that is just fantastic storytelling right there. Love that whole bit.
One of my favorite shots is when Scott Glenn is looking up, like they start shooting, and he's looking up into the little sub that's still docked on the Red October, and the guy still in the little sub says, "Hey, I think they're shooting at us."
Yeah. I think that was a torpedo, right?
I think that was a torpedo, you guys.
Yeah. I love characters like that.
Oh,
another
God, one
one,
of the best.
Rick Duckerman is another one. He's the one up in the plane who's just like eating candy bars or whatever, talking about how like just all he does is talk about how every single person just throwing up on this other trip. And it's just so gross. Oh, God, but
so
man.
Good.
So funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
Great stuff. And a great way to kick off this series. So, all right. Well, we'll be right back. But first, our credits.
The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson, music by Sam River, Ian Post, Adam Dibb, Oriel Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.
In the depths of the ocean, a silent hunter stalks its prey. It's a technological marvel, a testament to human ingenuity and the unrelenting pursuit of progress. This is the world of submarine warfare, where the stakes are high and the margin for error is razor thin. At the heart of this world is the Caterpillar Drive, a revolutionary propulsion system that allows submarines to move through the water virtually undetected. It's a technology that lies at the center of the 1990 film The Hunt for Red October, a thrilling tale of Cold War espionage and naval cat and mouse. But the Caterpillar drive is just one example of how submarine technology has evolved over the years. From the earliest submersibles of the 18th century to the nuclear-powered behemoths of today, the history of submarine warfare is a story of constant innovation and adaptation. With each new advance, the game of undersea warfare has become more complex, more challenging, and more dangerous. In the years since The Hunt for Red October was released, submarine technology has continued to evolve at a breakneck pace. Today's subs are equipped with advanced sonar systems, satellite communications, and even underwater drones that can extend their reach far beyond the hull of the vessel itself. It's a far cry from the days of World War II, when subs were little more than metal tubes with a propeller and a periscope. But it's not just submarine technology that has evolved over the years. The way we watch movies has undergone a similar transformation, from the earliest days of the cinema to the streaming revolution of today. In the past, watching a movie meant a trip to the theater, a communal experience shared with dozens or even hundreds of other viewers. But as technology advanced, so too did the ways in which we consume films. Television brought movies into our homes, while VHS and beta tapes allowed us to watch them on our own schedules. DVD and Blu-ray offered even greater convenience and quality, while the rise of 4K and HDR have brought the cinema experience closer to our living rooms than ever before. And now, with the advent of streaming, the entire history of film is just a click away. Services like Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime have made it easier than ever to discover and watch movies from around the world and across the decades. It's a technological revolution that has transformed the way we think about and engage with cinema. At The Next Reel, we've embraced this streaming revolution through our very own watch page at thenextreel.com/watch. Here you'll find a curated selection of films that have been discussed on our family of film podcasts, including The Next Reel, The Film Board, and Movies We Like. You can also discover listings for our older shows like Trailer Rewind and Silver Linings. The watch page is more than just a convenient way to find and watch the movies we've talked about on our podcast. It's also a way for you, our listeners, to support the show you love. By using our links to rent or purchase films through Apple or Amazon, you're helping to keep the Next Reel's podcast running and ensuring that we can continue to bring you in-depth conversations, analysis, and insights you've come to expect from us. So whether you're a longtime listener or just discovering The Next Reel for the first time, we invite you to visit thenextreel.com/watch and explore the films that have captured our imaginations and sparked our conversations. From classic thrillers like The Hunt for Red October to hidden gems and modern masterpieces, there's always something new and exciting to discover on the watch page. Join us on this journey through the world of cinema and help support the podcasts that bring these films to life in new and meaningful ways. With your help, we can continue to grow and evolve, just like the submarine technology that inspired The Hunt for Red October and the streaming platforms that have revolutionized the way we watch movies.
All right, sequels and remakes. So many sequels and remakes. I feel like we've talked about all of them.
Well, we're certainly going to be talking about the sequels. That's going to be coming down the pike as we jump into this whole series. But the book and then the films were the source of quite a lot of video games. And I know, like, this was something that I knew about this story from the games first.
What?
Before I knew about because my dad was probably reading the book, but I had heard, like, my friend was playing the video game. And so I knew that that was a game out there. There's a 1987 video game, then there was a console game, then a 1990 video game, there was a board game. This was something that had a lot, and it's just kind of gone from there. Lots of different games for this.
You know, I was never really a big Clancy video game person, so I never made the connection that Rainbow Six is in the Ryanverse.
Oh, yeah.
I've never played any of these games. In fact, I'm looking at a page of these games right now on the Jack Ryan wiki, and they are not familiar to me at all, with the exception of the Rainbow Six.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I knew about the 87 video game. In fact, I may have actually, I don't think I had it. It was a Commodore 64 game. I am trying to remember, or no, actually it was on a whole bunch of different platforms. I think my friend had it on the Apple II, because I had played this before and I found it very, very, very difficult. And so I kind of gave up on it, but he loved it. It was like you're looking at a map of the Atlantic Ocean and you're basically trying to, trying to find the Red October. I mean, that's what it is. You're hunting for it. So anyway, they were very popular. For it. Yeah, I know. It's in the title. What can I say?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it's the sort of thing that I think makes for these sorts of things very easy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I think it's funny that I didn't even make that connection. And I was playing video games at the time. Blind spots are funny things.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, how to do it award season?
It did okay. It had, for an action film, I guess, 3 wins, 8 other nominations. At the Oscars, it was nominated for Best Sound, but lost to Dances with Wolves. Best Film Editing, also lost to Dances with Wolves. And it won Best Effects Sound Effects Editing. At the BFI or BMI Film and TV Awards, it won Best Music. At the BAFTAs, Sean Connery was actually nominated for Best Actor, but lost to Philippe Noiret on Cinema Paradiso. Best Production Design was nominated, but lost to Dick Tracy, and it was nominated for Best Sound, but lost to the Fabulous Baker Boys. Last but not least, at the Motion Picture Sound Editors Golden Reel Awards, it won Best Sound Editing ADR.
Is that what you want to win for?
Hey, it's a win. I guess the people behind the ADR work are thrilled.
They want to win. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, how to do at the box office? You said this was successful. How successful was it, Andy, really?
For McTiernan's follow-up to Die Hard, he had a budget of $30 million, or $72.6 million in today's dollars. The movie opened March 2nd, 1990, opposite the one-screen release of Too Beautiful for You, landing in the number 1 spot, which it would hold on to for 3 weeks before being bumped out by Pretty Woman. Its opening was actually the 20th biggest weekend of all time and the biggest non-summer, non-Thanksgiving weekend to date. It had stayed in the top 10 for 15 weeks and ended up the 6th highest grossing film of the year. All told, it went on to earn $122 million domestically and $79.8 million internationally for a total gross of $488.3 million in today's dollars. That lands the film with an adjusted profit per finished minute of $3.1 million, setting Clancy's spy adaptations on good footing right out of the gate.
Do you think they could have made this movie for $72.6 million today?
I don't think filmmakers, I shouldn't say filmmakers, I don't think studios know how to make tentpole films for that much money anymore.
Yeah. That's mind-blowing, that kind of money. A $30 million movie in 1990 even, like that was a lot of money in 1990. And I think $72 million today seems like lunacy.
That's probably the salary for one of the actors.
Right? You get a cast like this.
Yeah.
Equivalent cast today. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
That's crazy.
Just crazy. I know.
Well, I'm glad we're finally talking about it. It's great. It's great.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's such a great film. I will be curious to watch the rest of them because this is the one I've seen the most. And I think it's been kind of, as the series progresses, the number of viewings I've had has diminished each time to the point where by the time we get to the Sum of All Fears, I've only seen that once. Clear and Present Danger, I think I might have seen twice. So,
Andy, how dare you bark at me like some sort of junkyard dog? We're doing it.
I know that comes from that film because you say it all the time. Yes.
Great movie.
Great movie. And it'll be fun to kick off this series. So we'll be right back for our ratings. But first, here's the trailer for next week's movie, Philip Noyce's 1992 film, Patriot Games.
This won't be like anything you've ever done before, little brother.
Target leaving the palace now.
There's Daddy.
From the producer of The Hunt for Red October.
Get down!
Based on the best-selling novel comes the summer's most explosive motion picture.
Buddy.
So, you just waded on in like John Wayne.
I couldn't just stand there and watch him shoot those people. It was rage. Pure rage.
A reluctant soldier.
They were moving him to Albany Prison on the Isle of Wight when it happened.
We are unarmed. We know he's escaped.
We think he's left the country.
In a war that isn't his.
What Ryan done can't be undone, so you should stop thinking about it.
I can't. There's never been a terrorist attack on American soil, Jack. These men are professionals. Personal revenge rarely plays into it.
But I killed his brother. Let's do it.
A man fighting for everything he holds dear.
Where's Sally?
Let's sit down for a moment.
No, talk to me.
For justice.
I'm after the man who tried to kill my family. I want back in. Who are we looking for here? IRA terrorists or some ultra-violent faction of the IRA? This is who we should be looking for. We find her, We'll find them.
For freedom.
Where are you taking me?
It's you who've taken us, Jack.
Into battle.
ETA, 35 seconds.
SAS could take on any one of these camps. Are you sure this is the same girl?
For family.
He's never gonna let us go, is he? I don't care what you have to do. You just get it.
For keeps.
Where's Sean Miller? Get me hostage rescue at Quantico now.
Airborne support approaching target area.
Patriot Games.
Comrade, listen up. It's me, a convincing Russian. I'm here to report on the Next Reel's family of film podcast, a veritable typhoon class of cinematic discussion. But we're not defecting. We're inviting you to defect to us. The Americans, they want access to our ad-free episodes, dropped earlier than the Soviet spy from a consulate window. They crave our bonus content and deeper dives than the Red October. They're even after our secret Discord channels. For just $5 a month, the price even a Politburo member could stomach, you can join the inner circle. Or show your true commitment to the cause with a yearly subscription for a mere $55. That's getting a month free, comrade. It's lunacy. Don't wait for the approval. Join the Next Reel family of film podcasts today, before the Americans get there first. TrueStory.fm/join to get started today. Letterboxd, Andy. Letterboxd.com/thenextreel. What are you going to do for this movie? Is it going to surprise me?
Probably not. This one is just an easy 5 stars and a heart. I have loved this from the first moment I saw this in the theaters back in 1990, and it just always has been just like my favorite of this entire franchise. So easy 5 stars and a heart.
Yeah, easy 5 stars and a heart for me too. It's a fantastic movie, and it just holds up time after time.
Absolutely.
Really, really holds up. Perfect.
Yeah. All right. Well, that will be 5 stars and a heart over at our account on Letterboxd at The Next Reel. You can find me there at Soda Creek Film. You can find Pete there at Pete Wright. So what did you think about The Hunt for Red October? We would love to hear your thoughts. Hop into the Show Talk channel over at our Discord community, where we will be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
Andy, I went low.
Oh, okay.
I went low because I have to see, it's a divided time, and I just want to see what the other half is thinking about this movie.
Is it half?
Well, no, I don't think so. So mine's from Kara Maistitu, who says, with a half star, what would expect from an American movie about American propaganda with American actors and Scottish ones playing Russians? This is the type of film that makes you hate film. I thought this was going to be similar to the Russia House politics for 2 hours, but fun. Instead, I got one of the most boring films I've ever seen. I just want to write a whole book about how much I hated this. The only good thing here was Scott Glenn and Tim Curry. Everybody else was acting really bad. Stellan had a performance, but he was there for 5 minutes or so. I have been watching a lot of bad films lately, and it's happening when I'm literally not in the mood for watching. So it gets worse when I watch something like this. And even though I don't really like Crimson Tide, but at least Tony Scott made something fun and enjoyable and actually good to look at. The Hunt for Red October is an ugly movie that reminds me of those apps that the government makes just to collect information, collect the citizen data, and then one day you will not find it in the App or Play Store.
Okay. Wow.
So I just feel like it's important to understand what those at the bottom of the list think of this movie.
Well, yeah, I guess there's that view.
Yeah. What did you do?
Sad to say. I went with Emma Stefanski's. That it's all in caps, so it's a screaming. It's more.
Oh, good.
It's right in the middle of a workout. Every morning I wake up and open palm slam a VHS into the slot. It's The Hunt for Red October. And right then and there I start doing the moves alongside the main character, Jack Ryan. I do every move and I do every move hard, making whooshing sounds when I slam down some red bastards or even when I mess up technique. Not many can say they escaped the ocean's most dangerous submarine. I can. I say it and I say it out loud every day to people in my quarters, and all they do is prove people in my quarters can be immature jerks. And I've learned all the lines, and I've learned how to make myself in my bunk less lonely by shouting them all. 2 hours, including winding down every morning. Then I left.
Outstanding. Okay. I think we picked the cream of the crop, both of us.
Best reviews ever. Absolutely.
Oh, thanks, Letterboxd. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way.